So let's go to PHPMyAdmin. Now, if you're using XAMPP, PHPMyAdmin is automatically included unless you chose not to install it, but hopefully you did. If you aren't using XAMPP and you're using a native LAMP stack, just go ahead and install it. It's not that difficult, especially if you're on a Linux distribution. So let's go ahead and create a database. I'm just going to call this LSApp. And then that's really all we have to do. Okay, we're not going to create tables through here or have to do any of that because we have migrations. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to open up the terminal. And hopefully you guys like this style here. I think I'm actually going to really start using this in my videos. I like how this terminal is integrated so easily. And let's see, we're going to first create a controller. Okay, we've already done that, so we know that we do PHP. Whoops, what the hell? So PHP artisan, and we're going to do make controller, and let's say posts controller. Alright, so it was created. Let's look in our app folder, HTTP, controllers, and let's refresh. And there it is, post controller. Alright, now we also want to create a model. So to do that, just like with controllers, we can say PHP artisan make model, and you want to use the singular version of it. Okay, so you want to just do post. Now I also want to create a migration because we want to create a table for our posts. So to do that, we just add -m. Alright, so let's run that, and now you'll see that right here it created a post.php. This is our model, and you can see it extends model. And if we look in the database folder in migrations, you'll see a create post table.php. Since we added the -m, it went ahead and created that. So let's take a look at this. This is what a migration looks like. So we have a class, a descriptive class, extends migration, and then we have an up and a down function. So when we run db migrate, it's going to go ahead and run this. And as it is, it's going to create a post table. It's going to create an ID field, which it'll make it a primary key. and then it's going to add two timestamp columns. One will be created at, and one will be updated at, and those will get automatically filled when we insert data through our application. Now, you probably want to add more fields, so what we would do is come over here and say table, and let's see what we want. We want a title, right? So let's do table string. We're using MySQL, so a string is going to be a varchar. All right, so we'll say string, and we want to call it title. Okay, so that'll actually create a title column. We also want a body, and I want this to be a medium text field, which is longer than a string. So let's do medium text, and that'll be body. All right, and then for the down, that's going to happen if we roll back the migration. So if we roll it back, we just want to drop the entire post table. All right, so we're going to leave this for now. Later on, we're going to add a user ID to the post when we implement authentication, but I'm not going to do that just yet. So let's save this. And then if you look over here in migrations, there's also this create users table, and Laravel includes this automatically, okay, so that we can easily implement authentication. So users will have an ID, a name, an email that'll have to be unique, a password, and some timestamps, and this remember token value. All right, it'll also create a password resets table. Now, there's a few things we need to do before we run the migration and create our tables. We need to first go to the .env file and input our database information. So I'm using a database called lsapp, and my username is going to be root, and my password is going to be my root user password for my database. All right, so make sure yours matches yours. And let's go ahead and save that. And then there's one more thing we have to do before running the migration. I'm not exactly sure why, but since we have a string in here, we're going to get an error that says something about maximum length. And to fix that, we need to go to and it's possible that you won't have this issue depending on what version you're using, but I kept getting it. So I'm going to go to, I forget where, is it it's providers, and then app service provider. And what we want to do is bring in something up here. We want to use Illuminate, which is basically just Laravel /support/facades/ schema. We're just going to say schema. Double colon, and then default string length. And we're going to set that to 191. All right, so if we don't include this here, we're going to get some strange error when we run the migration. So let's save that, and then we should be all set. So let's open the terminal back up. Whoops. Okay, and now what we're going to do is run php artisan migrate. And now if we go to our database, you'll see that there's a few tables here. There's users, there's password resets. Those are the two from the two migrations that Laravel includes. Then there's a table called migrations, which actually keeps track of our migrations, and then the post table, which we created. So if we click on that and go to structure, you'll see there's an ID, primary key. It's set to auto increment automatically. There's a title, a body, and then 2 timestamps. All right, so our table is created and it's ready to take some data. Now, I want to have some initial data to work with, so you could go ahead and go to insert, and you can do it through here. I don't want to do that. I actually want to use Tinker, which is a tool that we can use to insert data, select data, and all of that. So let's go back to our terminal here. I'm just going to make this bigger, and let's clear this out. So to use Tinker, all we have to do is do php artisan Tinker, and you'll see that we get this these brackets right here, and that lets us know that we're in the Tinker program. So from here we can interact with the database with Eloquent, which is an ORM that makes it really easy to do things. So what we can do is we can bring in the model. So let's see, we're going to do, so to access the model, we can do app / and then the model name. So we called it post. So we can call functions with this, for instance, count. All right, and it tells us we have 0 posts in the post table, in the post model. So what we'll do is set a variable. We're going to say variable post, and we'll set that to new, and then app /. Make sure you do a /, not a, and that'll create a new instance. Now that instance is basically being held in memory, so we can add fields to it. We can say post, we can use that variable, and we can add a title. So we'll say post title. We'll just call it post1. All right, and then we can press enter, and we can add another field. Let's do post body. And we'll set that to, we'll just say this is the post body, enter. So it has a title and a body. Now we can save it if we want. So to do that, we'll just do post save, and we get true. So now if we go back over to PHP MyAdmin and go to our post table. There it is, has an ID. Title body, and the created at and updated at gets put in automatically. So let's create one more. So we'll do post equals, actually, yeah, let's do post equals new, and post 2 equals new post in our database. CRUD functionality for our posts. We need to have a bunch of functions in our controller, and we need a bunch of routes. All right, now let's open up the controller. I'm just going to get out of the terminal for now. Whoops, we shouldn't need it for a while. And let's look at the post controller. So we're going to need a lot of different functions here. We're going to need an index. Okay, so the index is going to be basically the listing of all the posts. We're going to need, and I'm just putting this in here for now. You don't have to do this. We're going to need a create function, which is going to represent the form. Okay, so if we go to post/create, it should be the create form, and then it's going to submit to a function called store. Okay, that's going to be the function that takes care of actually submitting it to the model to the database. We're also going to need edit, which is going to be the edit form. Just like create is for the add form, and then that submits to a function called update, which will take care of actually updating it. And then finally we want a destroy, which is going to take care of deleting it. And actually there's one more, which is show, and that's going to take care of showing a single post. Okay, so these are actually resource functions or resource methods. Now, what we could have done, which I probably should have done, is when we created our controller, just clear this out. Oh, we got to escape this. I think we can do quit. Okay, so what we should have done is PHP artisan. Actually, we can still do it. Let's just delete the controller. So I'm actually going to delete the post controller and recreate it. All right, so let's do PHP artisan make controller, and then we're going to say -- resource. Oh, we didn't name it. Make controller post controller resource. And now if we go and look at the controller, let's get rid of this terminal, you'll see that it has all of those functions that I just showed you. Okay. And certain ones have certain parameters. So index, create, those don't need any parameters. Store, since we're going to submit to this from a form and we need to grab the variables from the form, that's going to take in a request object. All right. Show is going to take in an ID because we need to know which ID of which post we want to show. And then edit is going to take an ID for the same reason, because the edit form needs to have, it needs to know which post to show in the form. Update will take in request and ID because we're submitting the form to it and we need to know which one to update. And then destroy has an ID, so we know which one to update. So if you're handwriting these and you didn't want to delete your controller and create a new one with resource, just go ahead and add those functions with those parameters. All right, but it's fine if you just delete it and create it again. All right, so now we need routes to all of these. So if we go to our routes file, it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass to actually write out every single route. So there's actually a shortcut we can take, which is to use route resource. And I don't know if I showed you this before, but if we go back to the terminal, let me clear that out. You're not supposed to see that. If we clear the terminal, we can actually run a command, an artisan command, to show us what routes we have in our application. So we can do that with route list and it shows all the routes. So we have slash for the home page, which is a get request, shows us the controller method it goes to, about, services, and even the API user we created, which is just a function or a closure inside the route. Now, we'll go back to, let's close this up and go back to our routes, and we're saying route resource. All right, and then in here, what we want to pass in is posts. And we want to map it to a controller, so post controller. And then it's going to actually create all the routes we need for those functions that we created. So let's save this and we'll go back to our terminal. Clear this up. And let's again do route list. And look at that. It created all that we need. So we have actually create to our term list, and look at that, it created all that we need. So we have, let's see, so post get, a get request to post is going to load the index. You can see it actually has a name as well. It's going to load the index function. If we make a post request to, if we make a get request to post create, it's going to load up the create function. If we make a get request to post edit down here along with the ID, it's going to call the edit function. If we submit a form and make a post request to post, it'll call the store. If we make a put or a patch request to post/ID, that's going to call update. And if we make a delete request to post/ID, that'll call the destroy. So it connected all of our routes to those functions that were created. All right, hopefully that makes sense and it's not too confusing. All right, so in the next video, what we'll do is in our controller, we're going to bring the model in so that we can interact with it. We want to fetch all of our posts in the index function and then pass it to a view that we're going to create to view our posts. All right, and we're going to do the same for create, for edit, and then we'll move on to creating our forms and submitting them to store. We'll submit the edit form to update and so on. All right, so thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. In the last video we did a few things. We created a post controller and we added some resource functions here, index, create, store, etc. We also created a route. If we go to our routes web.php file, we created a resource route for our posts. Okay, so that's going to automatically map routes to those functions. And we also created a model. Okay, if we go to post.php, that's our model, which currently doesn't have anything in it. Now, your model, really, you don't really have to do much here because everything is in this, okay? All the, when we do something like the post model, and then we do all, okay, to get all posts. So this is coming from the model that this extends. So we have a ton of functionality available to us already through the model. Okay, so in here, what we'll be doing actually isn't very much. If we want, we're going to be adding a relationship between posts and users later on, so we will have to do that here. But other than that, we can set some values here, like the table name. So by default, the table, if we create a model called post, by default the table name is going to be posts plural. But if you wanted to change that, you could, and then you would just have to specify it here by saying protected table equals whatever whatever you name the table. Ours is post, so I'm just going to keep that. We don't have to have this here, but I'm just going to put it just for reference. All right, you can also change the primary key field. So in our case, it's ID. Actually, let's do, it'll be protected. So protected primary key. Actually, I'm not sure. This may have to be public. Let's just make it public. And primary key for us is ID because that's the default and that's what we have in our database. But if you wanted to change it to something like item ID or something like that, you could do that. You just have to specify it here. All right. You can also specify if you want timestamps for your records. So we could say public timestamps, and we're going to set it to true. We don't have to have this because it's true by default. We have the created at and updated at fields. But if we didn't want those, we could put false here. All right, so those are just some of the things that you can do in your model. And this is all in the documentation. All right, so let's just save that and we'll close it up for now. And what we want to do is go to our controller. So we're going to work on the index, the post index. So if we go over to our application and we say /posts, that's actually mapping to the index function in the post controller. And the reason it's mapping to that is because we have our resource routes here. Remember in the last video, I ran that artisan command that showed you all the different routes. So what we need to do here is we want to load the view. So let's say return view. And this is going to be in a folder called posts in the views folder, and then a file called index.blade.php. So let's go create that. So resources, views, and then let's create a folder in here called posts. and a file called index.blade.php. And then in here, we're going to extend our layout, which is in layouts.app. Okay, because it's in the layouts folder, and then in app.blade.php. Then we want to include the main section, or the content section. And in here, let's just put an H3, and we'll just say post. Actually, an H1, and we'll say posts. All right. So if we save that, and now we go to /posts. You'll see it's loading that template, that view. So back in post controller, we want to fetch our posts, so we're going to bring in the model. Okay, now the model has the namespace of app, and then it has the title of post, so all we have to do to bring it in is say use app /post. And then we can simply say post, and we can use any of the model functions. Okay, and this is actually using Eloquent, the object relational mapper, which makes it easier to do database queries rather than write out SQL. But we can do regular SQL, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So let's put a double colon and then all. Okay, and that's part of Eloquent that's going to fetch all of the data in this model, in this table. So if we just test this out and return this, okay, it's going to return this and stop. It's not going to load the view. you'll see that it actually gets all of our posts. Okay, it's in an array. So let's go back, and instead of returning it, we'll put it into a variable, and then we'll pass it into our view with width. All right, and then in our view, in the index, we're going to loop through it. So let's first check for posts. We'll say if count posts is greater than 1, and I'm going to put an else and then an end if. So the else, we'll just put some paragraphs, and we'll say no posts found. Okay, if there are posts, then we want to loop through them. So we'll do for each, and we should be able to do posts as post. And then in here, let's put a div with the class of well. We're using Bootstrap. And in here, let's put an h3, and we'll just do double curly brace, post, title. All right, let's try that out. And there we go. So we're looping through the posts in our database. And then let's just put a small tag underneath it. And let's just say written on, and then we'll do post created underscore at. All right. Later on, we'll add the author when we implement users, but we haven't done that yet. So right now, we'll just do the date. So let's add a link to our navbar to go to the blog. So we'll go to our views inc navbar.blade, and right here, let's just copy this, and we'll change this to blog, and it's going to go to /posts. Okay, so next thing I want to do is I want to be able to click on this on one of these posts and have it take us to an individual page. Now, when we created our resource methods, there's one called show, and that's what takes care of the individual post. So let's go back Actually, let me close that one out. All right, so let's go back to, actually, let's add the link first. So in our index, we'll go inside the H3 here, and let's put an A tag. Wrap that title. And then this is going to go to /posts slash and then the ID, which we can easily get with post ID. All right, so let's save that, and then it should take us to a blank page because it's loading the show function, but there's nothing there. So let's go to our controller and go down to show, and notice that it's passed in the ID. It's going to get the ID from this URL, so it'll know that this is post 1, this is post 2, and then to fetch it from the database, all we have to do, let's say return, and we're going to do post, which is our model, and then we're going to do find, and we're going to pass in ID. And that's it. It'll find it by the ID. If we go and we click on one, you'll see it loads post 1. Over here, returns post 2. So Eloquent is very, very simple. It's very handy, and it's very clean. And I'm going to show you some of the other stuff we can do with Eloquent up in the index, but I just want to get this settled first. So we know that this returns a single post, so let's put it into a variable, and then we're going to load the view. So we'll say return view, we're going to return, it's going to be in the post folder, and then it's going to be in a template called show. All right, and then we're just going to pass along post, and then the variable post. And that's it. So you can see how clean Laravel is compared to something like CodeIgniter. All right, not to bash CodeIgniter. It's just, I think it's a good comparison because I did a series on it. I do like it. I think it's a great framework to learn MVC with. It was actually the first PHP framework that I learned, but I think Laravel is much cleaner. All right, so now we have to create the show view. So let's go to our post folder in the views and say new file, show.blade.php. And let's see, we're going to do our extend. I'm just going to copy this. All right, and then what do I have, an H1 and then an H3 ending it? I got to install Emmet. All right, so let's go back to show, and this should just be an H1. And we should have access to the post because it's not an array. We don't have to loop through it. So let's just say post title. And then I'm just going to get rid of this. And let's test that out. So we'll go back and let's click on post 1, and you'll see that it gets the title. Okay, very simple. We'll add our small tag here, and we'll just say written on post created at. All right, and then we'll put the body in. So I guess we'll just put this in a div. Later on, I'm going to show you how we can implement a WYSIWYG editor so that we can actually, have a little section where we can choose headings and fonts and all that stuff. And we'll actually save it as HTML, but for now it's just going to be plain text. So let's take a look at that. And there we go. We have the title, the date, and the body. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the date underneath everything. So let's take this, copy it, and then under the body, let's put an HR, and then we'll put the written on. There we go. We should probably put a back button as well. So let's go right above the H1, and we'll just put a link, and we'll say go back, and that's going to go to / posts, and let's add a class of btn and then btn default. Now we can go back. All right, so before I go, I just want to show you some other things we can do with Eloquent. So let's go back up to the index where we're just selecting them all. Now let's say we wanted to order it by something. Let's say we want to order it by title. So what we could do here is instead of using all, we can say order by, and then in here we want to say what we want to order. It by, which will say title, and then the second parameter will be if it's going to be ascending or descending. So let's say ASC, and then just that isn't going to get it. We actually have to call get. Okay, if we're going to add clauses like this, then we're going to say get at the end. So let's go ahead and save that and reload. Okay, and I guess if we do descend, it should reverse. So all right, and that's actually how I want it because I want the most recent to be the first. Now, if you wanted to get an individual post, just like we did down in the show, and obviously you can use find like we did, but you can also go like this. You could say post equals the model, and then where. And instead of getting it just by the ID like we did below, we could get it by title if we wanted. So we could say where title is post 2, and we have to add get to that. And let's just return that. And you'll see that it's only getting us post 2, and it's getting it by the title. It's using a where clause, so we can do that as well. I'm just going to comment these out, or comment that out. Now, what about not using Eloquent? Let's say you want to just use SQL queries. For that, we can bring in the DB library by just doing use DB. And then let's comment this out for a minute. And let's say posts equals, and then we're going to do DB, and we're going to do a select, and we're going to say here we're going to put our query, which will be select. All from posts. Okay, so that should work the same way. It should get our posts. Let's reload. And it does. All right, so you can use this if you want, but I don't see very many cases where you should use this over Eloquent. I just think that Eloquent's a lot nicer and a lot easier. So let's comment that out. We'll put this back. I actually want to put the initial query back as well, just so you guys have it. So post all, like that, and I'll just comment it out. I should probably put this one down here next to the return. All right, that way you guys have this if you need it for reference. Make sure it works good. Now we can also limit our posts pretty easily. So if we were to do, let's see, let's copy this, and I'm going to just comment this one out for now. And then let's just add on to this. We're going to say take. We can just chain things like this, which is nice. So let's say take 1. And now if we go back and reload, actually that's not right. Take, oh, I think I got to do equals 1. Let's try that. No, that's not right. What the hell? I could have swore that that's supposed to work. Let's return this and see what it gives us. Oh, so it did. ID. That's weird. Let's go back. No post found. Not sure why it's doing that. Because we're putting it in the variable, we're passing it in. It should be an array of 1 value. What if we did take 2? Huh. Oh, wait a minute. Ah, I did post greater than 1. It should be greater than 0. That's why it wasn't showing, because it was 1. It wasn't greater than 1. I don't know why I did that. So now if we go back and say take 1, it should give us 1. Good. All right. So I just want to show you can do that. And then the last thing we're going to look at is pagination. And I'm just adding it because it's really quick and it's really, really simple to do. All we have to do is grab this, and instead of get, we're going to say paginate. And we only have 2 posts, so I'm going to paginate it with 1 per page. So now if we go back, there's still only 1, but we can put our pagination links down here very, very easily. We'll just go right into our index and go under the for each, still in the if, but under the for each. And all we have to do here is say posts links. And that's it. Oh, watch this. Reload. Look at that. They're even styled. So post one, we can go back to go to the next page. Obviously, we want more than one per page. So now if we go back, there's still only one, but we can put our pagination links down here very, very easily. We'll just go right into our index and go under the for each. Still in the if, but under the for each. Reload. Obviously, we want more than one per page, so I'm going to just change that to, let's say, 10. And then once we hit 11, the pagination will kick in. Right now, it's not going to be there because, well, we only have 2 posts. All right, so you can see how easy that is with Laravel. In the next video, what I want to do is start to work on the form so that we can actually add posts through our application. All right, so sit tight. I might have to upload the next video tomorrow, so don't worry, that will be the next thing that's uploaded. I'm not going to go off and do something else and come back in a week, so don't worry about that. So let me know if you guys are liking the series, and I will see you in the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to Laravel from scratch. In this video, I want to start to create the form to actually add a post through our application. So if we go to /posts/create, that should load the create function inside the post controller. So let's go there. And you can see there's nothing here, so it's just loading a blank page. What we want to do is load up a view. So we'll say return. And it's going to be in the posts folder. And then it's going to be in a template called create. All right, so let's go ahead and save that, and we'll go to our views and then post folder. Oops. And let's say new file, create.blade.php. All right, and then I'm just going to copy what we have in the index. And let's see, for the H1, we're just going to say create post, and then we're going to get rid of everything else here. Okay, so let's just save that, make sure that loads up. What did I do? Return. Oh, I didn't put view. All right. Now for forms, you can use regular HTML. Laravel, I think it was Laravel 4, included a really nice helper for forms. So that has been removed from, I believe, Laravel 5.0 and on. So it's available from Laravel Collective. So that's what we're going to use. Let's go, yeah, Laravel Collective, and then we're going to go to HTML and forms. And then this is going to show us how to install it with Composer. And if we go down here, we can use syntax like this. We can say form open, and then the URL that it's going to submit to. And this will just create an opening form tag. This will be the closing form tag. And then we can include certain components So if we look at right here, we can include labels like this, and then for the inputs, we can do form text and just pass in whatever we want to call that, passwords and checkboxes, select groups, all that stuff, anything that you can do with a form. And then it also includes cross-site protection. Okay, so it's going to include an CSRF input that's going to protect us from people trying to submit from other places. It's going to make sure that the form submitted from our application. So let's go look up here. Now we're going to use Composer. So all we have to do is say Composer require, and then the package name, and then the version. Okay, so let's just copy this, and we'll go over here and open up our terminal. Let's clear this out. We'll paste that in, and that'll install it. Now, we do need to add some things to the config. Usually when you install a Laravel package, you'll have to add it as a provider, and if it has any aliases, you'll have to add those. So let's just copy this one line right here, and then go to our config folder in app.php. All right, I'm going to just close the sliders. We're just going to go right down to aliases. Just going to add it to the set to use citation, and we're just going to grab this right here, and then let's go to our view, which is our create.blade, and paste that in there. Now, instead of using URL here, I mean, you could do that, but we're going to use action. So we're going to put an array, and we're going to say action, and set that to the controller function, which is going to be posts. Controller, and then we're going to do at store. Okay, store is the function we're submitting to. And then we just need to describe the method, and this bracket should go over here. Okay, so we'll put a comma here, and then the method, which is going to be post. All right, and we're using Bootstrap, so I'm going to put a div in here with the class of form group. And in here, we're going to put our label, so we can do our double curly braces and do form ; label. And in here, this is going to be a label for title. And then the actual text, which will be title with an uppercase T. And then for the input, or the text input, we'll do form text and we're going to pass in the name for this, which will be title. Okay, and then the second parameter is the value. This is going to be a create form, so we don't want a value, so we'll have just a blank string. And then we can add attributes inside of this array. So let's say we want to add a class onto this. Text field, so we can say class, and we want it to be form control, which is a Bootstrap class. And then let's also add a placeholder So placeholder, we'll just say title. And that should give us the input. So let's save it and take a look. There we go. Let's see, why is that? Oh, I forgot the T in form control. There we go. All right, so there's our title. And then we want a body, so I'm going to copy the whole form group. And let's change this and this. And then instead of a text, we want this to be text area. Okay, we'll change this to body, and the placeholder, we'll say body, or body text. Okay, let's check that out. There we go. And we're going to make this into an editor later on, but not just yet. Now, we're also going to add file uploading, but I'm not going to get into that just yet. We're going to add that later on as well. I just want to get a basic CRUD application up and running, and then we'll move on to authentication and file uploading and all that stuff. All right, so let's put a submit button. We're going to go right here, and we're going to say form submit. Okay, that's going to be the value, and then we have some attributes we can add. I'm going to add class. Sorry. Okay, and that should do it. So there's our form. Now when we submit, it's going to make a post request to store. So let's go over here and go to our store. Now validation in Laravel is very, very simple. All we have to do is say this validate, and then we can pass in the request that's being passed in. To the store function, and then an array of rules. So we want the title to be required. Okay, and that's all we have to do. Also the body. Okay. So now if we go down here and let's just say return 1, 2, 3. So let's go back and we're going to go back to our form and let's submit, and you'll see that it's not letting us. If I enter the stuff in here and submit, now it does. Alright, now we want some messaging here. And what I'll do is go to our views folder, and in the includes, we're going to create a file called messages.blade.php. Alright, and then in here, we basically have three things we want to check. We want to check the errors array that's created when we fail validation. We also want to check for session values, so session success and then session error. And those are going to be flash messages that we can create at any point. So let's say up here, if count, and we want to look for errors. If that's greater than 0, if that's greater than 0, then we want to loop through. We'll say for each, and then we want to do errors. This is actually an object, so we want to do errors all as error. Alright, and then inside here we're going to put a div with the class of alert and alert danger, and we just want to put error. Alright, and then below it we're going to check for session errors. So let's say if session, Actually, we'll do messaging for success messages first. So this will be session success, and then down here we're going to end if, and then let's put in a div with the class of alert, and this will be a single message, so we don't have to loop through. So success. All right, and then here we can just say session, and then the type, which will be success. All right, I'll show you how to actually create these messages later. And then this one's just going to check for session error. Okay. All right, out. So let's go in the container right above the content here. And include that and go back and reload and submit. And now how we get our error messages. If I put the title in, it's just going to tell us the body. If I put that in, it's going to submit. Okay. And it's as easy as that. It's very, very simple to add validation. You can see validation, pagination. This stuff is really easy with Laravel. It's very elegant. So let's go back to our post controller and finish our store function. Now, remember we used Tinker and we inserted our stuff into the database? We can do the same exact thing here. All right, so let's say create post. And this is going to be post equals new post. Okay, and the reason that we can use this is because we brought it in up here. Okay, just like we used it here in the index and everywhere else we used it. Okay, so new post, and then we want to add our field, so we'll say post title. Set that to, we're going to set it to request, and then input, and then title. All right, this will get whatever is submitted into the form. We want to do the same thing for the body. Okay, so this will be post body. Set this right here to body as well. Okay, and then we want to save it, so we'll just say post save. And then we'll just redirect. So to redirect, we can just say return redirect. Very simple. And we want to go to /posts, and then let's set a message with this, a success message. So all we have to do is say with and success. And then post created. Okay, remember we created that messages file. This is where we can actually set the message. So let's save it. And we should now be able to submit a post. So let's go to post/create. And let's do post 3. In the middle. We're going to order it by created at. All right. Good. So let's put a link to add post in our navbar. So we'll go over to includes navbar, and I want to put this on the other side on the right. So under this UL, let's put a UL, and we'll give it a class of nav, navbar dash nav, and then navbar dash right. Okay, and then we'll put in an li. Okay, and this is going to say add, or let's say create post. And it's going to go to slash posts. Slash create. Okay, so now we have a link to create our post. So I guess we'll go ahead and implement the editor. I wasn't going to yet, but we will. So let's say laravel, I think it's, shoot, what is it? laravel-ck editor. Right here, Unisharp laravel-ck editor. So we need to install this with Composer. So let's grab this right here, and we'll go over and open up our terminal. Let's clear this out. To the app PHP file, we need to add a provider, just like we did with the other package, the Laravel Collective. So let's go to, let's close this up. I'll just make it small here, providers array, and we're going to need to also publish our resources. So we do that with this finish. That'll publish the assets, and then the usage. What we want to do is in our layout, I'm going to take this right here. We're going to do it this way. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to do it this way. You can use jQuery if you want. So let's copy this, and we're going to put this into the layout file. I'm just going to close these up to avoid confusion. All right, so our layout file, which is in views, layouts, app.blade, and we're going to put this, let's put it right above the ending body tag. We want to use the editor. We want to add that to our create, where we have a text area. And to add an ID, we can just add into this array right here. So let's do CK editor. And now we have an editor. It's as easy as that. So if I create another post, let's say post 4, and we'll say this is post 4, and let's make 4 bold. Okay, now this is going to get saved as HTML. Now if we look at the source code, you'll see there's HTML tags. So let's submit. All right, and then if we look at post 4, you'll see it's not parsing the HTML. So the reason for that is when you just use, if we go to our show template, which is what we're looking at, if we're just using these double curly braces, it's not going to parse the HTML. So with the body, what we want to do is use 1 curly brace and then 2 exclamation marks. And that'll actually parse the HTML. So let's save that, and we'll go back and reload, and now you can see that it's actually parsing it. There's no paragraph tags showing, and we have our bold text. All right, so it's as easy as that to implement an editor. So in the next video, what I want to do is make it so that